So I'm going to give you a walk through the book that is The Folklore of Wexford. I literally only got this in my hand on Monday. About 1,000 copies, printed by Walsh Print down in Kerry. And here's the kind of list of contents, from rare Christmas Eve traditions to the cabinet building down in Buenos Aires, the hall called Canon recipes, the Halloween traditions, but all local and all stuff that I would have researched and came across myself. So we've got an introduction by the North Wexford Historical Society, because I've teamed up with the lads in the production of this. First page is a couple of pages of an introduction to talk about why I do this and where it's coming from, and photographs of people here. There's the late Mary Coleman, a neighbour of mine, only passed away there in August this year. So I talk about why I kept things local. I've deliberately focused here in Wexford. I don't have no interest in other counties in the sense that basically I'm going to keep on digging here in my home county. So there's a great image here of the Cambro Normans down in South Wexford and the Gaelic North. And I grew up in the Gaelic North. Part of the county that was kind of it's not as well written about, to be honest with you. So we try to address that here. So it talks about areas called the Duffrey and the Magpie Moors. I grew up in the Magpie Moors. Very interesting maps here from the Magpie Moors from the 1600s. And around particular names that are there, particularly the Redmond name, which is a version of the Magpie Moor. That's where we all believe it comes from. There's one of the Redmonds there. The Redmonds up in North Wexford, we believe, are of a Gaelic strand rather than the Anglo-Cambro Normans at the south. So then we have a whole section of kind of place names, local place names and maps, talking about the Magpie Moors, little local place names here. You can see Mac the Moor here, Mock Davy Moor, how he left his name, or left her name in this part of Wexford. Again, a neighbour of mine here, May Murphy, down in Glascarrig, and there's Glascarrig, and there's the actual ruins of what's left of the abbey, those there in those maps. So it puts flesh to things, it puts real people and real lives and real voices and real stories to a lot of these things. So that's an interesting little section I did on just maps at the start for people, especially kind of local people, to look at their places and how they've changed and how names have changed over the years. This section here is on a chapter here is on St. Coleman and his ducks. It's a great image actually. It's probably one of the earliest folklore images we have of a piece of folklore that's from this part of the country. It's about St. Coleman and his ducks, a great story. St. Coleman's was a saint from up around this part of Wexford, around Ballindagan, and he also was over in Glascarrig as well, but he's also left his mark around the country to a lot of St. Coleman's. But here's a great account from the famous Geraldus on St. Coleman's ducks. And there's the holy well where St. Coleman's ducks, apparently the story came from. So we also got a tradition that kind of put in different kind of calendar customs in it. So here's some New Year's folklore. And if you notice as well, I've got some QR codes here scanned in. So if you you can if you want to scan them in, you can go listen to further interviews. There's one here with Kenneth Nash over in Branch in Newfoundland about a tradition there. Or Einie Jeffries over down in Arklow, who was telling me a lovely thing that they had down in Arklow years ago. So the QR codes are a great thing as well, because you can actually hear the people who are telling me the stories. So also these are Hansel Monday. Hansel Monday is the first Monday of New Year, and little photographs there of people. Someone, a man from Scotland, bringing in some coal. James Glover bringing in some coal into the house. Traditions around Hansel and a purse for children. Then also around the whole tradition of straw, holly and ivy folklore around Christmas, and ivy folklore. And a lot of ivy would be hung up in cow sheds and things, and straw would be kept in people's purses and things like that. And again, also accounts here from Newfoundland about kind of New Year's traditions there, because it's been time over in Newfoundland that you're just picking up bits and pieces. Another one, lovely one here. This is the one that I came across. A woman here from Westmeath living in Wexford had it, but it's really done in Galway more so, East Galway in particular, and Westmeath, as a rare kind of little Christmas Eve tradition. There are more stuff here around Nullig Namon and Little Christmas. A woman from Limerick I would have recorded a couple of years ago. Here's a little account of a lone folklore, a lone bush folklore. This is out near Owlert. It's a lone tree with a stone underneath it. It's probably the only one I know in Wexford that's still standing. So I've got some accounts there as well, contemporary accounts of that tree and the stories, what stories behind it. And also when I'd come across an account maybe from the school's folklore collection, I'd put it in as well. And then you can scan these here. You can hear other stories about lone trees. There's a great story about the lone tree down below in Camp Hyle. There was planted in a graveyard and cut down. Again, some of you will know the tradition down in Kilmore of leaving crosses by the side of the road. But there's also, I've got some images here from the National Library and also from Carrick and Banno. And again, that tradition as well is also found in County Mayo. People forget it. The Wexford ones think it's all just a Wexford tradition, but it's not. I came across that exact tradition when I was working in Mayo over the years. Another thing as well, on St. Bridget's Day, sticking with the calendar folklore. and looking at different kind of designs and where the power of the cross and how the cross came into people's lives, and especially in the farmyards over the years, and the effect it would have had on people and the belief that people would have had for it. I came across this particular cross on a little dresser outside Gorey, and it's just lovely. There's a powerful story to it, and you can hear the story here, but you can also read about the story there. Another little thing on the breed dog dolls I used to make with my own grandmother when I was a child. These are little dolls, we call them Ballygarrett Rush dolls, and you got little descriptions on how to make them stage 1, 2, and I've also got QR codes on how to make St. Bridget's crosses. If you type in how to make a St. Bridget's cross into YouTube, my videos come up. I made it here one morning very quickly, and it's gas how something that can be made on your kitchen table can get so many views. I suppose because it was kind of clear. Another one here as well is my big dirty fingernails here holding a piece of my grandmother's red flannel, and I talked about St. Bridget's cloak and around the idea of cloaks and putting things in your vests for colds years ago. Also traditions around St. Philomena's Court, a very strong tradition within the travelling community. I've got a good bits as well as in Newfoundland. I'd work with a lot of people from the travelling community over the years, so you'll have a right mix of from right across Ireland of different customs and traditions. Again, another lovely thing here on Candlemas Day, the idea of blessing a candle and maybe blessing a candle maybe when a cow would calf, and how I came across a candle in St. Bridget's Cross in the neighbours, the late Willie Sinnott out near me in Ballygarrett. And little verses here as well, little verse I got from another woman who's passed away as well, Mary Deegan from Bunclody, and photographs from Newfoundland, because the tradition carried on over there because of all the Wexford, Southeast Irish people who went over there. Lovely things around Candlemas Day. Another lovely thing on the West Waterford St. Bridget's Cross tradition, a photograph here of Peg O'Regan down below in West Waterford, and how this cross now design is now being made in Wexford. Another, again, looking at other cross designs that would have died out here, but I would have found them over in the West, in Galway and in Mayo, and also in County Clare. Images here from County Clare, and this man here again, the late Jim Gavin, has passed away. I met Jim a couple of years ago, 2019 I met him. Another lovely account here section on just the Bunclody rush rattles. This woman here, Nan Connors, makes these little rush rattles, and they're absolutely gorgeous. So I have examples of that, and examples of Nan making them, and examples found around the country. Another story around St. Patrick, because I kind of go through the calendar year. Now in volume 2 we'll be going through a lot more Easter stuff and other content, but here's around St. Patrick's Day, and St. Patrick when he landed in Ireland, when he landed in Kilkenny, and the treatment the poor man got apparently. And again, if you scan these accounts, you'll hear accounts from Mayo around St. Patrick about fellas killing St. Patrick's goat apparently. Also a little section on planting spuds, and when you date you plant your spuds. And these are men I would have met out in Blackwater, out in Noel Cullen's farm. And again, if you scan them, you'll hear interviews with some of these men talking, and especially Johnny Dempsey here talking about this little thing he has here for picking up spuds, and then he talks about how spuds were so important to him. When I mention spuds, I can't help but talk about the potato blight and the effect that had on Ireland, as we already know. But I just went local with this one because I went local in the sense of where one of the first recorded accounts was. It was on the Macklemores, the area where I grew up, because I was on the east coast of Wexford, and it was blown in, and it was just newspaper accounts at the time, and then also accounts from the school's folklore collection, but also accounts as well of monuments. There's very few monuments to the North Wexford in particular. Got probably North Wexford more so than the south of the county. Was affected more with that part of our history, and just looked at some where it's remembered locally, you know. This image here is striking because it's a place where the Bullring Cross, where we're told that people were buried after 98, but also buried after the time of the famine. And even the word famine, it wasn't. I'm reluctant to use it in some ways because, well, we all know there was loads of food left the country, and there was loads of food in the country at the time. Also, there's an interesting document here got it from John Angle in Gorey, and up on top of the hills here where I'm living now, up here in Ballindagan, you'll see some lazy beds, and you'll see the ruins of little farmhouses where people would have lived. There was this particular farm here belonged to a man called John Whelan, and they were sent up to the hill. He had no other option but go up to the hill and try to farm, and you can see the ruins of his little beds and his little house still there. So there are accounts there for that. Another thing as well is a whole thing on Lent and fishing and courting. After St. Patrick's Day, it was one of the dates on which you could break your Lent, I suppose. But Lent was always a time for eating fish, and but it was also a time for courting as well, if you could get away with it. So there's a whole section there on herons, or herrings as you might call them, but we call them herons, and the importance that could have been salted for Lent. A whole section then on fishing along the east coast of the county, particular, because that's where I grew up, you know. The next thing as well is a section on keeping the Christmas holly, and the idea of keeping holly, and that's to do with Lent, and to do with kind of traditions around Lent and getting married, the Skelligan days, but very, very local Wexford kind of content there. Then our section on the Magpie, and we all know the Magpie arrived, apparently landed in that field there in southeast Wexford, and all the folklore that came with him. And there was a neighbour of mine said there'd never be peace in Ireland if the Magpie left the country, because I saw the Magpie as a foreign bird coming in. So there's a whole section on that. It's a great image of Liz Jeffers from Kilmore, and about little folklore around the Magpie and the absence of the Magpie, and also looking at the Magpie tradition and superstitions over in England, and how it actually went over to Newfoundland as well with us. Also, just to let you know as well, I've put in a few songs as well. Here's a song called Mr. Magpie, and I wrote it for our three girls here, and it's about meeting a magpie, and it's about about the experience a child has when meeting a magpie one day, and the magpie tells them, will you go home or that, and forget all about the bad luck that you've had. But for any of us interested in singing, it's my partner here, my wife Aileen Lambert. They scan that and you'll hear her sing the song, and you'll also get the air of it there. It's the air of the parting glass, but you've got the words there for you if you want them. I have a whole section on then after Lent on Easter. We've got a whole section on the Maybush. We're actually working on a new book on just on the Maybush as I'm talking to you. It'll be ready in the new year. But here's an overview of the Maybush tradition in Ireland. Fantastic photographs here of Luke Dorn up here at the back of the mountain here in Ballymurphy, putting his Maybush up in his gate to keep the fairies away, keep bad luck away, and also things around Maybush dances. And that covers the whole tradition of the Maybush outside the county hall in Wexford town. Lovely accounts of the Maybush, where it was really plentiful in the Macklemores where I grew up, and also things around the Maybush planting scheme. But the idea of planting the Maybush, that was a project we've been working on over the last number of years, getting the Maybush planted back in Wexford. Lovely image here from Newfoundland, from Pint Lads, as Wilfred Conway, so I made have his mother Catherine, and also great. These are great images to have. This is from Maura Comerford and Gorey, about the whole tradition of the May Queen. Another one here of the May Queen in Coolgraney from Margaret Nash. Next section on sacred water, the importance of water, because May is tied in with a lot of water, May, June in particular, and the May rain, so loads around that. And you can scan in here, you can hear interviews with a neighbour of mine talking about Tran water, but you can read it here as well. That's the great thing, you can read about stuff here, but if you want an extra little bit of information, you can scan it there and then it'll bring you to more. So that's another really easy way another smart way to do it. Another great image here around, more stuff here around water. Fantastic image here I came across in the house. You mightn't be able to see it, but there's two bottles of holy water beside by the picture of Jesus, and one says holy water, and a little bottle beside it says Pochi, and it was in a derelict old house. But there were two important pieces of water in people's lives. Another tradition around May bonfires and May flower tradition, which you find in Arklow and around Coolgraney still. Again, another little song here by Aileen is called Good Morrow Fair Yarrow. It's a little May song, and the air and all is there, and you can scan it there and you can hear it. More about the tradition of the around bonfires and the 21st of June, and the 21st and 23rd of June, the summer solstice. 21st of June in Wexford marked the Battle of Vinegar Hill, which is the longest day, and that kind of without doubt had an effect on the St. John's Eve traditions here. So there's a whole section on that. There's also a little thing here as well. I threw other little bits and pieces in here, and there's a little one here on little lovely piece of folk art that I found with my late father. He showed them to me back in 2016 of little schooners carved by young lads around stones and then buildings around Ballygart where I grew up. Sticking local again, there's also a little section on the Ganseys, the Arklow Gansey. Forget about your iron jumpers and look at it, because the spread is much wider and bigger, and there's a bigger story there, and not just tied in with white jumpers that you will find in airports. So the orange thing there on the Gansey. Sticking with another section as well, there's another thing, because I'm local to this. This building here in Buenos Aires, it was built by this woman here, Karina Kavanagh, and Karina's grandfather came from Ballygarrett, and our father, I think he was even born there. He was even born in Ballygarrett, and it became very, very well. So there's loads of folklore and stories around them. So it's a lovely story to record and to remember, I suppose, for local ones as well, to record that, remember that story. I didn't do anything in summer's folklore in this one, because that's for volume 2. I'm going to be looking at volume 2 in the new year and have it ready later on in the year for 2024. Whole section on Halloween, coming into the dark of the year, and the devilment in the skies. There's a great image of my mother, by the way. And also looking at the tradition. This is from Kevin Danaher's map. of where the guising tradition was popular in Ireland back in the late 40s, so it wasn't a widespread tradition at all. So it covers that, and it looks at where tradition was where yeah, as you can see, that's the part of the country it was in our part, especially North Wexford, and even compared to South Wexford, didn't go on at all. So there is an interesting little overview of that, and again, all very real stuff, right? And again, you can scan there, you can talk, you can. There's a lovely video of my mother calling to my grandmother's house over 10 years. And Colin dressed up and acting to Egypt. So as you can see, there's images from Newfoundland and images from Ireland, and particularly from Wexford here. Another thing around the gate lifting tradition that was done all over the country, but it's just to hear about it here. It was also done all over the country, but naturally it was done here as well. So I recorded it here. A whole section on All Souls and the lighting the dead and remembering the lighting the dead, and a whole thing around the carving of turnips and the idea of where it came from, and the practicalities behind it. Sometimes you get a lot of new age kind of old brus about these traditions that are completely made up with no actual evidence or proof, just made up and copied from the internet and copied from this, that and the other. So this is a nice way to dispel some of those kind of myths. A nice accounts here around carving turnips and making called cannon as well, all from here, and you can read about them there. Lovely tradition, lovely stuff here as well to show you that the tradition is linked into our mainland European neighbours over in Holland and Germany on St. Martin's Eve, and it talks about that there and how they carved them. There's a young one in Holland carving a turnip, so we didn't invent it, lads, I'm afraid. You might think we did. Now, I couldn't let the book pass and talk about Halloween without giving you the recipe for called cannon, the Wexford recipe. So forget about your ones you've read on your chefs or your ones you've Googled on the internet. This is the one that my mother made, my grandmother made, and I know from hundreds actually of other people, mostly women, that's the recipe that they all made as well growing up. So forget your bullshit regarding called cannon, what you made or didn't, what you might read, but this is what was done here. I'm afraid to say. We use parsnip in Wexford, by the way. Some people use carrot, maybe turnip, but that was it. A one-pot job, and there's the recipe for you. Also, to talk about the tradition around barn bracks and all that kind of crack. But also a lovely account here actually from Patrick Kennedy. Patrick Kennedy is one of our unsung heroes here in Ireland, I think, in general. And Patrick Kennedy was collecting folklore back in the 1800s, and he's got a fantastic account of throwing bread on the door, a cake of bread at the door on Halloween night, and wishing hunger go away to the Sosnoch till this day 12-month, or this night 12-month. He's also got a great account of Shave the White Friar, which is the game that you know now, probably the flower game, a lot of people would call it. But Kennedy's got an account from 1885. Also, I can't mention this time of year without talking about St. Martin's Eve and St. Martin's folklore. And St. Martin's Eve is the 10th and 11th. Sometimes it's the 11th. St. Martin's Day is the 11th, but some people call the Eve the 10th. More people call the Eve the 11th. There's no right or wrong in folk tradition. But fishermen in Wexford won't go out that night, or no watermill will turn. Here's the late Martin O'Connor and Ballinamona, Kilmuckridge, telling me all about the watermill. John Furlong over down again, Kilmuckridge, talking about fishing and not fishing on that day. And a great poem here by poet Mary O'Brien talking about telling the story of from 1762 of the fishermen of Wexford by John Boyle O'Reilly. It's a fantastic poem about fishermen who ignored the rule and went fishing, and they paid the price. Another section here as well on fishing, herring fishing down below in Cahor, and just photographs here of interviews I would have conducted with men when they be out fishing. Also, here's a lovely story on St. Moling. St. Moling was one of our saints here. He left loads of place names here, Munamalin in particular. And there's the late Joe Ryan down in Tullaher in South Kilkenny, and she gave me a piece of wood one day when I was in her home, photographing her dresser. Said, bring that home, said, put it in your house, and your house won't burn down. It's a piece of St. Moling's tree. And about an hour later, I got to that man's house, and he had the same piece in his house, belonged to his mother. So it's a tradition from that part of South Kilkenny and South West Wexford. Whole section on the Banshee, or the bows we call her in Wexford. Again, not based on kind of mythical stuff that I can't back up or I can't back up, or probably can't fathom half of it, but basically I don't believe half of it. Just these are stories that I would have heard from people. People know whether you believe them now or not, it's a different story, but they're interesting just stories to hear with local stories. And there's also a lot of crossover with the Banshee and mermaids in this part of the east coast of Wexford, and you get that similarity down around I came across it down in the Basque Country as well. So wherever the Norse were, the Vikings were, they left their mark. So there's that kind of standard folklore on the Banshee. They find the Banshees comb and putting it out through fire tongs. Stuff that probably people would have heard, but there's loads of little interviews here where you can hear other people talking about it, and that's what's the magic about it as well. And as we're coming close to the year, then the book is coming towards the end, and I've got a section then on the Christmas trees and white thorns and the early Christmas trees. As you probably know, so many of us didn't have Christmas trees in Ireland. None of us did. The older people didn't have Christmas trees. So that kind of talks about that, and interviews with people talking about not having Christmas trees. They were completely foreign to us, right? Another thing about the new tradition, this is a new tradition I see happening, it's called St. Barbara's Day branches, where little bits of cherry tree are brought in and they sprout in time for Christmas. Another tradition which is new, and a neighbour up the road here, my Polish neighbour, and she has it, and also a woman I know over in Germany has documented it as well. And it's about the idea of chalking the doors for little Christmas, and the idea of putting these little blessings on your doors. But it's gas that these little traditions are going on around us with new communities, new people living in Ireland, and that's one thing you'll find as well. I kind of have a bigger understanding of the wider picture of where our traditions are with regard to Europe, and Europe, mainland Europe in particular, and obviously our neighbours in Wales and England and Scotland as well, and the Isle of Man. Another thing around Christmas and light, this is a fantastic thing. Bridget Buckley up here in Killan, and her husband Sean, and she's holding in her hand the Christmas block, and neighbours gift each other bags of sticks at Christmas. So it's tied in with the whole Yule log tradition and the idea of having light and fire over the Christmas month, or over the Christmas holidays. There are more things around the lighting the candles, visiting graves, eating fish on the day. Again, like many of our Polish community will talk about that, eating fish on Christmas Eve. And then you can scan these here and you can hear accounts from Bridget, or you can hear accounts from Tommy Tutty and Mick Higgins up in Balafad talking about traditions there. And I had a couple of pages at the end, and I said I'm going to end with this because it's a piece of work that I wrote a couple of years ago in 2017 called We Are Wexford, and it's a little poem, verse, spoken word piece that I wrote, and people liked it, and it talked about who we are. And I suppose I wrote it about everyone in Wexford, because sometimes when you let tourist boards and all them kind of board falsha type people get involved in telling their stories, they'll tell the story that they want to tell, and sometimes ordinary people's lives don't get looked in at, especially people who live and are from the ground up, who are from there. So I wrote this thing about who we are in Wexford. So if you like it, you like it. If you don't like it, you can go shite. And that's pretty much it, really, in some ways. But it tells you about who we are, and I put in some video stills of the different people telling it as well. There's Damien Fitzhenry, there's Richard Warren, and you can scan there and you can bring it to hear the piece. Then there's a bit about Mikey here and about what I do and all this kind of stuff, and a bit about us and the girls and the lives we live and what we do. Thanks to all the people who give a hand doing everything, and which there are loads. So thanks a million to all those people who read and proofed this for me, because my spelling is brutal. And I counted the back then about other recordings we would have done over the years. People forget, like this is like when you write a book like this, you're writing from 20 years of recording. So there's about, I don't know, I won't even count, it could be 20, 25 folklore collections from around the country, and I would have put more there, only I ran out of room. So we work on loads and loads of projects, meeting loads of people, and listen and hear stories the whole time. And there's on the back of it then, it ends then with a quote from Monk and McGann saying that, just saying this, I do what I do, and I do. But also it ends really what I suppose was, I came across this image out in the home place. Sorry, I'm moving my camera around. And it's before a mother and father making a cock of hay with my two sisters in the park at home. And I went out and I held a photograph up to the spot where the cock of hay was. And as I said, the layers of time, what once was a meadow was now a lawn. And that photograph was taken in about 1984, I think it was. So I dedicated the book to my mother and father, both have passed on. And but there is the book. It's called The Folklore of Wexford, 130 pages. It's volume 1. There will be volume 2. And for me, it's a great way, because I've spent so many years recording and listening and talking to people. It's a great way to get those things onto paper, and I value paper as I'm getting older. If you want to get a copy, head over to Folklore.ie. There might be copies there. As I said, I got 1,000 copies printed on Monday. They arrived on Monday, and I have just about 200 left, sold in about 3 days. So obviously there's an appetite for it. But listen, if you don't get it, enjoy me talking and bring you through this. Thanks for listening.